that horrific, senseless tragedy. And my colleagues from the Connecticut PTSA, who are in the audience with us today, would tell you that this pain never quite goes away. But I assure you that fear has not taken over. The parents of Sandy Hook Elementary are resolved to move forward and to help improve school safety nationwide. Many schools have violence prevention plans and crisis management teams in place. These plans include descriptions of school safety policies, detection of early warning signs in children, intervention strategies, emergency response plans, and post-crisis procedures. The most effective violence prevention and response plans are those developed in coordination with schools and health officials, parents, and community leaders. I urge each of you in this room to take a leadership role in your schools and make sure you understand and help formulate your school's safety plan. Both the National PTA and the U.S. Department of Education offer resources to help you get started. In my experience, when families and schools partner, the solutions multiply. Understanding, improving, and working the plan together will build your confidence and build a safer school community. And with this, I would like to invite Assistant Secretary Delisle to tell us more about the administration's school safety priorities and plans for moving this conversation forward. Assistant Secretary?
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good afternoon, and first of all, let me say that I totally appreciate this opportunity to join you today. It really is an honor to be in your presence, to be in the presence of people who are so focused on helping their children and their communities to really reach different levels and higher levels of aspirations and achievement. I've spent 38 years in the field of education, have been everything from a teacher to a principal, a school administrator, I've been a state school chief, a commissioner of education, and I have to tell you in all of those endeavors, I've always found that parent-teacher organizations are absolutely essential to all of the roles in which I've played and how I see education rolling itself out. I relied on PTAs to help me to build essential pathways to partnerships in all of the communities in which I've worked, but most especially, and perhaps even now more than ever, we have to rely on PTSAs to come together to make common sense approaches to all of the planning and all of the work that goes on in school districts. As was mentioned, and I just want to talk a little bit about the horrific school shooting in Newtown, because I think it resonated with us in a way that perhaps some of the prior incidents didn't. It came on top of multiple incidents of violence, so perhaps it was the breaking straw, the breaking thing for all of us. That horrific school shooting in Newtown struck all of us deeply. Like you, my heart broke for the children, the families, and the community of Newtown. And for certain, I can remember exactly where I was when I first heard the news, and I think you can as well. I have to tell you, felt the tragedy as a person, especially as a mom, and felt the overwhelming sadness of such a loss for parents whose children went far too young, but perhaps never had another opportunity to say, I love you one more time. I actually grew up in Connecticut, only about 20 minutes from Newtown, so having lived relatively close to that community, I can see the street, I could see the school, so it just made it a little bit more alive for me. But I felt the tragedy as an educator, thinking of the staff and the principals at Sandy Hook and school leaders and administrators across the country. I could think of their outreach to parents and felt the concern and fear that we all have for the safety of those in our charge and those with whom we work every single day. As a former school administrator, I immediately understood the sense of incredible responsibility that rests on the shoulders of every educator who sees children and grapples with the challenges of day-to-day just learning, let alone safety in each of our schools. And that suddenly became far more pronounced after the event. I know the secretary was with you this morning, and he gathered us together. He gathered the senior leadership at the department the day that happened, shortly right after we heard about the event, to discuss the ways in which we could offer support and assistance and extend our efforts from Washington, D.C. into Connecticut, like we do so often when tragedies occur. I was in that meeting, and like the rest of us, he was visibly shaken, he was saddened, he was troubled by the events. And like any parent or educator or community member, he was really, really angry that our children were victims of gun violence yet one more time, and yet too many times. Just like the president, he's committed to ensuring that we're doing all that we can to keep our children safe in schools. He's deeply engaged in the department's efforts to help you and to help leaders across this country create safe learning places for our children and our youth. My Office of Elementary and Secondary Programs oversees programs and services to students and their family from birth through grade 12. It's a pretty expansive office. And some of our programs, such as school safety, stretches into higher education spheres as well. Our programs cross many specters, from those you may not know about, such as rural education. We help with Guam and the Marshall Islands, Puerto Rico, the Northern Marshall Islands. We also help with homeless children, but we also help with migrant children, school improvement grants, teacher incentive funds, Title I, all of the ESEA flexibility, teacher and principal evaluations, all of that. But our work has really tripled, quantified in the last several months on the safety and healthy wherewithal of our students. Our Office of Safe and Healthy Students has been deeply engaged with the Department of Justice, and representatives here today, and I really want to thank you for your partnership. We're working across federal entities with the Department of Justice, with our Health and Human Services, Homeland Security, the Vice President's Office, to pull together a strategy to address what has become far too common in our children's life, the threat of their own safety. We offer through our Office of Health and Safety Students grants to school districts, and it's one of the budget items that doesn't seem to diminish at all because it meets the needs of school districts. So whenever learning is interrupted, and you should know about this as a community member, when learning is interrupted, we actually provide dollars to school districts no matter how that learning becomes interrupted. So it could be from a natural disaster, so we just sent out a lot of money into New York City, New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey because of the impacts of Hurricane Sandy, and obviously we are working with the Newtown School District. Although the shootings in Colorado took place in a movie theater, we're actually supporting one particular high school because so many of the students from that high school were actually in the theater the night of that occurrence. So we help in many, many ways. We've also been working since, has it been December on Now Is the Time? So most of us spent about December 20th through January 3rd, when I thought maybe we'd have a little bit of downtime, but we spent about 3 to 5 hours every single day crossing over federal agencies to help each of our principals put together a proposal that went to the Vice President's office. It has now been released, called Now Is the Time. If you don't have a copy of that, I encourage you to go onto the White House website. Just put a search in for Now Is the Time and it will come up. And in Section 3, you're going to find our contributions from the Department of Education in it, and it's about making schools safer, and we have several proposals in that. One is that we are working with the COPS program on a proposal to put up to 1,000 more resource officers, counselors, and mental health professionals in schools. We're also working on comprehensive emergency management plans. And what I found in working with Connecticut, we did a large symposium in Connecticut on January 7th. What I found is that since Sandy Hook, many folks are focusing, or actually most folks are focusing on what happens in school buildings. But I can tell you as a former district superintendent, the vulnerabilities for our children and of our children are vast. As I was driving January 7th to the symposium in Connecticut, I was seeing 15 school kids clustered on every corner waiting for a bus. As a school superintendent, every Friday night, 800 people would show up, 800 students would show up for a football game. Shortly after the new year, what happened when there's a student who was taken off of a school bus? So our students are vulnerable in so many ways, and we want to help school districts to think about comprehensive management plans, and an essential component of that is your engagement. These are not to be done in isolation. They are to be done, as was mentioned earlier, in collaboration and partnerships with law enforcement agencies, with community groups, with parents, and even at the secondary level with students. Having those voices to talk about what are the issues at hand. We're also working through, now is the time, on support systems to students through nurturing our school climates. We know that our students not only have to feel physically safe in schools, on their way to and from schools, they also have to feel mentally safe, psychologically safe. So we're looking at the increase of dollars flowing out to school districts in programs such as positive behavior intervention services, such as restorative justice programs. So we're really putting a big play on that, and then also improving mental health services. The vulnerabilities of our children are all over the place. So to the extent possible, we have to think about not just one solution, but a comprehensive array of solutions. And I have to say that school safety should never be a proprietary item. It doesn't belong to any one group. It doesn't belong to any one agency, and that's what we're finding out and working across our federal agencies. I just want to close in saying this before we jump into our panel. I've always lived my life and my career by one mantra, which is what we offer to our children tells them what it is that we value. So when we offer opportunities for them to feel secure in schools, for them to gain a sense of responsibility, for them to gain a sense of ownership of their own learning, we tell kids that we care about them and the ways that they're developing as human beings. So again, I don't know if I'll have an opportunity to say this before I depart, but I want you to know that the Department of Education really believes in parents and community members as total partners to the work that we do each and every day, because you are on the ground improving the lives of children and families in your community, and most of all, you offer the greatest gift that we can give to all of our children, which is the gift of hope for their future. So thank you for your work, and I think we're on to our town hall.
Thank you, Deb. I would like to introduce to you our expert panelists to help answer your questions. First, we have Bill Bond, who joins us. Bill is a former principal who experienced a tragic shooting in his own school in Paducah, Kentucky in 1997. He is the National Association of Secondary School Principals Specialists for School Safety, where he provides resources for principals organizations across the nation. Next is Bernard Melekian. Better?
Close enough.
Close. Melekian. I've practiced all night, guys. Director of the Office of Communication-Oriented Policing Services. Director Melekian and his organization work to enhance the safety of communities by advancing community policing. And also joining us is Dr. Eric Rossen.
Rossen.
See, I told you guys. I blame it on the Southern accent, okay? Dr. Rossen is the Director of Professional Development and Standards at the National Association of School Psychologists. Holding a PhD in school psychology, Eric is an expert on issues related to bullying, crisis response, trauma, and school psychological practices. Gentlemen, a sincere thank you for joining us this afternoon. Please help me